Hey there, superstar. In this video, I'm going to share what I believe makes a great retreat. First, I'm going to share an overview of the intended outcome of any great retreat. Then I'm going to dive into specific things you can do to make sure your retreat is fabulous. And finally, I'll share one way that you can take the next step to dial up your retreats and make more money from them. Let's go. Ultimately, at the end of the day, what makes a great retreat is one that people feel like they got their money's worth, that they walk away and they feel fulfilled, inspired, transformed, and that they got the outcome that they came for. I have been leading retreats for almost a decade, and before that, all sorts of bigger events. I made the switch from large events to retreats, which are, in my opinion, small, intimate, transformational experiences. I made that transition because I wanted to connect with people more deeply. I do love being on a big stage in front of hundreds of people, and I still do that a few times a year. But what really floats my boat and jazzes me up is to be in a small container with 5 to 25 people doing much deeper, more intimate work. That's why I shifted my entire business model to focus on retreats. And from retreats to build a back-end client list, a back end of mastermind clients and coaching clients that I work with together in a group format to achieve mastery and lasting transformation. If you've ever heard me talking about my business model, you'll know that that's what I call the big back end. But here we are to talk about what creates the kind of retreat that makes people want to sign up for the big back end. So the first thing that I would say is that you have to be clear what the objective of the retreat is. Now that might sound pretty obvious, but it's important. There are a lot of different types of retreats out there. In fact, I have a whole video about all the different types of retreats. You've got wellness retreats and spiritual retreats and business retreats and professional development retreats and learning ones and all sorts of different types of retreats. And yes, you can take elements of some and put them in others, but ultimately each retreat has its own set of objectives and outcomes that people need to walk away with. Another part of what makes a great retreat is having great programming. That means having great content or speakers or activities or exercises. It's what you fill the retreat with. And in addition to having great programming, it is my opinion that a great retreat also has enough time for people to integrate the great programming. So one of the mistakes that I used to make early on in my retreat business was that I stuffed every waking minute with some sort of activity, exercise, or content. And the feedback I got from people was, I feel overwhelmed, right? I can't integrate it all. I need some more space to myself. So a great retreat provides both the programming and the non-programming so that you're not filling every single waking minute. Another component of a great retreat is having what I call a conducive location. A conducive location means something that is aligned to the outcome that you're trying to achieve. So for example, if you're leading a wellness retreat, you want a location that's conducive to wellness or relaxation, right? A place that's maybe quiet and secluded and inspiring, right? You don't want to have let's say a meditation retreat in the middle of a super busy and noisy city where you're constantly being distracted by trains going by or alarms and sirens blaring, right? So a conducive location supports the outcome. Now, I'll also say on the flip side of that sometimes people put way too much importance on the location, more than they really need to. One of the things that I like to say is sell the promise, not the production. And what that means is that rather than getting too caught up in having the perfect venue with the perfect amenities and, the right food and all the things perfect, it's more important to focus on getting a good enough location and then having the programming do the work. So one of the things that can happen with people, especially with trying to make a retreat business, is that they can get so caught up in finding the perfect location that they spend everything on that location and end up not making a lot of money. Or let's say when COVID happened, if people made their whole event about the location and then nobody could travel, then nobody would be willing to come to a virtual version of the event. But if the event wasn't about the location and it was more about the transformation, maybe it would have been possible, like I did, to go to a virtual format. So get a conducive location, but do not place all of your focus on that location. It's important, but it's definitely not the most important thing. And by the way, conducive doesn't have to mean fancy or expensive. Another feature of a great retreat is that it's well organized and that it runs smoothly. That means that things are running more or less on time. People can be more flexible sometimes, especially in like a wellness retreat or a spiritual retreat versus in a professional development retreat, right? So generally speaking though, in a retreat, you can be a little bit flexible. You can understand that things might need to evolve and change, but overall you want it to be well organized, be run smoothly so that the production doesn't overshadow the content, right? So if you're constantly running late and people are hungry or you're starting late and they're getting annoyed, this is going to impact the way that the retreat is received. So have good, solid organization. And that means most likely having someone who's not you running the show, logistically speaking. Now, by the way, before I keep going, I do want to invite you to take a moment and hit the like button and subscribe to my channel to learn more about how to build and grow your retreat and coaching business. Another thing that makes a great experience in a retreat is having community bonding, for people to connect and support each other, share with each other, and essentially have an experience of human interaction and bonding. And kind of in addition to that, and maybe a little counter to that, it's also great to have people get some individualized, personalized support. So you can have a group retreat experience, but also have maybe a few private sessions with certain practitioners or one-on-one with you or something like that. So a mix of group and potentially a little bit of one-on-one. So for example, when I lead my retreats, we have this group thing that I lead, but I also bring in a mindset coach that's there to support people individually if and when they run into some challenges with the work that we're doing together. One of my biggest things that I think is so important in leading a great retreat is to have what I call a transformation trajectory. The transformation trajectory is a mouthful to say, is the process of getting people from where they are to where you want them to end up. What is the transformation that you want people to have? For example, the retreat that I just ran this past weekend, which is my Superstar Business Breakthrough, and I'll tell you more about that later. The transformation that people go through is from having no sense of what they want to, or having maybe not no sense, but not being clear, being unclear about what's next for them in their business, being unclear about what's the big back end, what's the business model, how are they going to market and sell, having these ideas, but being unclear, to being very clear about their business, brand, model, marketing, sales, and all that. And in 3 days, right? So this is a 3-day transformation trajectory. There's a lot to getting from here to there in 3 days. So I've designed a trajectory based on these milestones. Like, all right, what do they need to have in order to feel clear? Well, they got to have a 90-day plan. They got to know what they're going to do for the next 90 days. Okay, boom, 90-day plan. That's one of the steps on the journey. In fact, it's the second to last step on the journey. Well, they also have to have projections. They've got to see, they have to have a business model and know how that business model is going to generate money. So they need a business model and they need projections to go with that. Oh, you know what? Before that, they need to have clarity on who the audience is that they're serving and what's their value proposition to that audience. Okay, boom. That's on the transformation trajectory. So I basically design all the elements that need to get mapped out for that end result, and there's more than what I just mentioned, and then I lay it out in time over the course of the 3-day experience. And one thing I'll share with you that's not even in my notes because I forgot to write it down is that when I'm doing personal development, or really the deeper, the spiritual retreats, because we do the business one on the front end, but then in the back end of that, when I'm working with people deeply, we do these deeper retreats. I like the transformation trajectory to follow a very specific path, which is mind, body, heart, soul integration. So it means that we start with the intellectual concept of the retreat and the topic. We talk about it, we discuss it, we get very mental about it. Then we move into the body. So we start to move the body, which in my hallucination of life means that like we're getting that mental energy to kind of shake its way into our body. Then we do something that opens up emotions and the heart and the feelings, like how we feel about whatever we're talking about, and opening up to those deeper layers of emotion, and then moving beyond that into some sort of transrational awareness of what is bigger than me, what is beyond me, touching themes of soul threads and destiny, and then ultimately integrating all of that together into one final sort of transformation and giving people space and grace to do that. So that's kind of my transformation trajectory. That's what it looks like for my 2 types of events. And what that does for you is that gives you a way to kind of reliably deliver results every time when you have a clear transformation trajectory. And then finally, this is the last thing I'm going to talk about, but there's a lot more. I would say having some sort of evaluation and feedback process that helps people to reflect on their journey, helps them to integrate the journey, and also a way for them to share that with you so that you can fine-tune the journey that you're creating for people. So by the way, if you are a coach, consultant, speaker, and you're looking to create transformational experiences and retreats like I do, I'd love to help you with that. That's what I do, is I help people like you and me create the new model, the new business plan, the new vision, the new strategies to deploy the new model into the world. The way I do that is through my Superstar Business Breakthrough Program. I've been doing this program for almost 10 years. It's outstanding. We just came off of one this past weekend, which was amazing. And if this sounds like something that could benefit you, let's connect. You can find out more at superstarbusinessbreakthrough.com.